Hello and welcome to my channel, which sounds really weird to say, but welcome. To get really quickly into it, I just want to say the reason this video is going up first is because I think it's been nearly a year since I was admitted into hospital. I'm still getting questions about it to this day. Over on my Instagram, I put a question tab asking any questions you guys have about obviously my hospital experience. So it didn't come down to just depression. I've struggled with OCD, which a lot of people put in this narrative that it's that you like things being in order and clean, which isn't the case at all. So I've struggled with that since I was really young. You get these horrible thoughts and compulsions. You can't really live your everyday life. It really affects you. So I was constantly getting checked in the hospital for reduced movements. I was a very anxious person. I think I went into triage 20 times, and you can only go after 20 weeks. So in 19 weeks, I went 20 times. That is just a little, puts into perspective how worried I was all of the time. Grayson, I had a great birth with Grayson. It was fine. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't anything, like it wasn't complicated really. And I was terrified of SIDS. Now, me and Paul are both ex-smokers. Paul actually still smokes, but I know that that can increase SIDS rates. I was certain that everything had smoke residue on it, and I thought if that somehow comes into contact with me, Paul, Grayson, if it comes into contact with Grayson, it will kill him. I was certain of it. I was so scared. And it wouldn't just be if I touched something, it would be if I touched something that touched something that touched something that touched the smoke infected thing. I don't know if I'm making sense, but in my head it was completely valid, and it was a real worry, and it was a realistic worry. And I would wipe Grayson down if I felt like there was something that could have touched him on his neck. I would wipe that, and it was really bad. Then we moved into our new flat, which should have been a really exciting experience. Instead, it was probably the worst part of my life. I deemed everything that we had packed as smoky, and I didn't allow Paul to unbag it or unpack anything for the 3 weeks that I was stuck inside on the sofa. I actually have notes of things that I did around that time that I wanted to bring up. So when we first moved here, the person that was renting before us vaped, and he vaped inside. Fine, it's your place, do what you want. I was terrified of that as well, because nicotine, I had done too much research to find, why it was bad to be around third-hand nicotine or vape or smoke. I hired cleaners specifically to clean the walls and other bits. Paid them £150 to mop the inside of the walls. Crazy, I know, but I thought there was nicotine all over the walls, and I didn't want Grayson going up to them and touching them. I came back after the clean had been done, and I looked in little things like the fridge. It was meant to be just a freshen up of the flat, like a deep clean of the fridge, things like that. And I could see inside the fridge that it wasn't even clean. So then I started doubting, well, they clearly didn't wash anything properly, so they obviously didn't wash the walls properly. So then me and Paul took in turns mopping the walls. Well, one of us was with Grayson. I didn't actually leave the flat at all. So we moved in on the 5th of July. I then didn't leave the flat until I was admitted to hospital, which was on the 29th of July. So over 3 weeks I was in this flat, and I didn't even know what the outside of our flat looked like. I didn't know what our street looked like. I didn't know anything. I didn't know hardly what the corridors looked like. I don't remember it. Because in my head, if I opened the door, I wouldn't be able to come back in and wash my hands without touching the door again. So I was scared to go out. It was an awful time of our life, and I didn't even hardly let Paul parent, which was unfair of me. But I was so terrified that he was contaminated. I would stay on the sofa all day. I couldn't even walk on the floor to the bathroom until Paul had mopped a trail for me to go to the bathroom. I would break down. It was extremely bad. Paul would time me, so it was so excessive that I would get up and wash my hands after anything. I couldn't even touch Paul. And he once timed me at the sink for 28 minutes straight, just washing my hands. I would go through a soap bottle a day. A big one would maybe last a day and a half, but one of the regular ones I would go through in a day. That's just some of the very crazy things that my head made me do. I just wanted to give a little backstory of what actually happened to me, instead of like, because a lot of people think it was like psychosis, which I don't know if that could have been a form of that. I don't know. I do want to bring awareness to this because a lot of people think it's just cleaning, and it's not. It ruined my life. I'm going to get into the Instagram questions that I have because so many of you had so many questions, and I want to answer as many as I can. So let me just get these up. First question that someone's asked is, why did you stay in the hospital so long? I didn't start recovering in the hospital for a good month until, like, that I was in there. I didn't really make any progress until I was there for about a month, and then it took me about a month to get to the point where I was able to come home, because I had started new medication that obviously then calmed my anxiety, so I was willing to try and resist the compulsions, if that makes sense. There were women that smoked in the unit, and we all shared like a little kitchen if we wanted to make a cup of tea, and my mind would make me wash my hands after touching some of the cups, the clean cups, because what if the girl that smoked touched them right after a cigarette? That would somehow put it on me, and then I would transfer that smokiness to Grayson and harm him. By resisting the compulsions, it would be like, I don't need to wash my hands after touching this, and I'm going to touch it anyway. Changing meds really helped that, because before the anxiety was just so bad that I couldn't physically resist it, and I'd have to do it, otherwise I couldn't do anything and it would ruin the whole day. Someone said, most of these questions was, how did you know it was time to seek help, and how did you find the help? My sisters and my family were telling me, like, I think you need help, like, there's these mother and baby units, like, you can take Grayson with you, because my fear was, I don't want to be without him, I don't want him to get taken away from me. I didn't want people to think I wasn't fit enough to be a mother, but it got to a point where my life was like, it would drain me just to wake up in the morning. I didn't want to wake up, I just wanted to not think ever again. I didn't want to have another thought go into my head. That I thought, like, I can't live like this, I have to get help. I think I called 111 and asked for the mental health hotline. I think I did this a few times because you can't self-refer to a mother and baby unit, you have to get your GP too. So I think I was trying to make appointments, nothing came of it, so I would just call 111 constantly. An ambulance was called a few times when I'd been in crisis, and, you know, like, it got escalated. And then once the ambulance was here with me, and they said, look, we can take you to the A&E, like, and, like, you can just go to the mental health department of the hospital. And I was like, no, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to sit there for hours, nothing's going to happen. And then they said, they referred me, so they actually called up someone, I don't remember who it was, but they said, I think she needs to be an inpatient somewhere, I think she needs to be admitted to a unit. That's how I ended up doing it. And then we got in touch with one of the women from the postnatal mental health services, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, and they were the best. She came and assessed me and said, right. And then that day that she came and assessed me, there was a space opened up in the mental health unit for mums nearest me, and I went that night. It was quite a quick process once the ball was rolling, but it did take a while to really plead my case and say, look, like, I'm really struggling, I can't do this anymore. What treatment did I receive in the hospital? So the first thing they did was change my medication, because I was on something called escitalopram, but I wasn't taking it regularly. It wasn't doing anything for me, obviously, because I wasn't taking it regularly. And then when I got to the hospital, they just changed my meds and tried me on my new medication, which I'm on something called, what's it called? It's an antidepressant that specialises, like, it's especially helpful for people with OCD. And like I said, then once that started to kick in, I felt a bit more positive, and being in an environment where they encourage you to, they bring everything to you. So there'd be baby classes, there'd be walks that we'd go on, there'd be activities for the babies, there'd be activities for you. It kind of forced you to be around people and socialise, and automatically that does lift you up a lot. Socialising with mothers especially, and the people I met in there are going to be friends for life. Like, I can't imagine what it would have been like without making friends with these girls, honestly. The first night I got to the hospital, I thought, what have I done? Because in my room, they didn't provide soap in the bathroom, and I broke down and I was crying, panicking. Like, I was like, what am I going to do? I need soap. One of my favourite nursery workers went and found me some soap cubes, and that sufficed for a while, I guess. After a few days, I started to, like, talk to people and found my way there a little bit. After I'd settled in, I started therapy every week. Did social services get involved? Because I always get worried, so I never seeked help. They did get involved, but they were the nicest people. They're not here to take your baby. Like, they are there to help you, which sounds, I know people say this all the time. They did get involved for a short while, but they could see that Grayson wasn't in any harm's way. Like, it wasn't anything like that. It was just because, obviously, my mental health was so poor, and I'm his mother. Obviously, they're going to worry, I guess. They're going to. They discharged me after I had come home from hospital, and they could see I was doing better. They discharged me, and now social services are not involved. But they were for a bit, depending, I guess, on how severe your case is. They could, but they are not going to take your baby unless your baby is in danger. So some of these questions are about Paul and how he felt. I don't think it's fair for me to speak on his behalf. Obviously, I would want him to answer that. But he has told me that he felt neglected, definitely, in that situation. We were, even while I was home. Sorry, I've got a bubble in my throat. When I was home and I was kind of shielding Grayson from him a bit, it makes me really sad to think about now, because I was so ill that I wasn't myself. I would push Paul away and I would say, like, don't come in here, like, I can't deal with it right now. And the only reason I would push him away is because in my head, I didn't want to have to. Paul triggered me because he was this contaminated person. He felt lonely during that time, and it makes me really sad to say. But yeah, it just shows that, like, on social media during that time, we were making videos. Paul was making all his funny videos, and we seemed like completely fine. Behind closed doors, our relationship was completely different. We knew we had to make videos because it's our job, and it just goes to show how fake social media is, because during that time was the darkest time of our relationship. It is hard, and it was hard for him. When did you start feeling yourself postpartum? I am 11 months postpartum and only just feeling this way. I'd say, honestly, only recently. Only recently I've started to feel myself again. I think it's hard to navigate your life after becoming a mum because everything changes, and it's hard to get into a new routine and a new normal, you know? I don't think I'm 100% there yet. I've seen some people say it takes up to 2 years. Some people probably feel like themselves after like 2 months, you know? It's probably different for everyone. What were your first signs that you needed help? I was angry a lot after birth. Like, because of my head, it would make me like outburst in anger and rage. And I've noticed that when my OCD is bad, I get angry, and it's been that way since I was young. Like, when I was younger, I would take it out on my mum, my family, etc. It's the same with what happened. I got angry, and it was like, you know, like postpartum rage, I guess. Like, you'd feel really like frustrated at things, and there's just little snaps of anger that I had that was probably a sign that I was going downhill. Also, like, just not going out, not really looking after myself, which I know can be so normal in the first few months, but I think it just got to a point where people around me realised I need help before I did, and I realised for Grayson, it's not fair for him to live that way. Ew. I don't want to cry because, ew. I realised that for Grayson, this needed to change. This wasn't how I wanted to raise him. This wasn't the life the childhood I wanted him to have. Did my feelings change towards Grayson? Never. It's very common for postpartum depression to affect the bond you have with your baby, and I'm so happy to say that I never had that. I can't imagine how hard that must be. But I had met people that have had that at the unit. That was quite common. I just really hope that if anyone does feel this way, to know that it's okay, but please get help. How are you now compared to then? And a lot of people are saying, how are you, like, and that's really kind, thank you so much. The person I am today is so different from the person I was. Like, sometimes I look back and I can't even believe that was me. When I was younger and I first got diagnosed with OCD, I really didn't want to take medication because I didn't want to have to rely on this little pill to make me normal. It's crazy the difference between me and now. I'm so much more patient, I'm relaxed, I'm happy. I don't stress about things that aren't in my control. Like, it's so different for me to feel this way after feeling that way for so long. The last question that I'm going to answer is, has your experience stopped you from wanting more children? Yes and no, because I know that if I was to have another, there would be a plan in place for me. So the perinatal mental health services, you can self-refer until your child is 2. I think yes and no. I'm scared to have another because it is just a massive, like, your body, yourself, you feel a lot different after you've had a baby. And because I've only just got back to being nearly myself again, I think I am scared of that, because I don't want to like repeat the cycle and like restart the process. But it definitely hasn't scared me from having more kids, but I do think I'd be a bit more weary of like my mental health and my emotions, and look out for signs more, because the first time I was in denial that there was anything wrong with me, and I thought it's just normal, I'm just protective, like, you know, to an extent, of course it's normal. But I think that's all I'm going to answer for today. Sorry it was kind of long, I'm going to try and make it as quick as possible. Thank you for watching. I hope this helps someone. That's why I've wanted to come out about it, because it's just not talked about. So I just wanted you all to know that it is normal. You shouldn't feel like a bad parent if you are struggling. And please don't not get help for the sake of being scared that they're going to take your baby away, because that was why I was scared as well. But take it from me, someone who genuinely thought that and then got help anyways, that is not what they're there to do. Just wanted to start this off with a little interactive video that people have been asking for. So yeah, thank you for watching. Thanks to everyone who sent the kind messages. It really means and meant so much when I was going through it as well. But yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.